welcome everyone to In Time. Downtime tonight. My name is Nick Soutter. Thank you all for joining us. We've been off air for a little bit, and there's been a lot of interesting news. So I'm hoping the commander will indulge me, and we can talk about some of what we missed while I was unfortunately unavailable. We're also going to be doing it. It's going to be a crazy month coming up. So to let you all know what we've got going on tomorrow, 1 p.m. Eastern. Sorry, we moved that. It's going to be 3 p.m. now going forward, 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Operator Starsky is going to be on to let us know what's going on in Ukraine. We've been really enjoying those conversations. It's thankfully been a lot less about the combat recently. Major combat operations have not yet really resumed in Ukraine. Obviously, a lot's been going on in Bakhmut, but fortunately they've been hanging in there, but I think things are going to start to get a little more intense over there pretty soon. So we're going to talk to him about what's going on and how they're planning for what I think is going to be some significant changes going forward. That's tomorrow, 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Then on Saturday we have our fundraiser for the UN Refugee Fund. It's going to be a fundraiser. All super chats are going to go to the UN Relief Fund for Ukraine. It's going to go to refugees right now. 90% of the funds go to either Ukraine or to Poland. Sorry, was it Poland? Yeah. Where they're suffering the greatest number of refugees and trying to keep them housed and fed. So I think that's going to be a marvelous thing. And we're going to have a lot of people now. This actually started with Godless Granny, who reached out to us and said that she had knitted or crocheted, sorry, I always get that one wrong, a Ukrainian flag. So we're going to be giving that away to whoever has the highest super chat, as well as a personalized thank you letter from Operator Starsky and from myself for contribution. But all contributions are going to go to the UN Refugee Fund for Ukraine. We expect to have on Godless Granny, the Shills, Operator Starsky, Anna from Ukraine, Anastasia, and a number of others that we're still talking to and getting signed up. It's going to be a call-in show, so if you want to talk to any of these people, there's a local access number. You can call in and say hi, ask your questions directly of any of your favorite Ukrainian vloggers. So I think it's going to be a great show, and it's for a worthy cause. So I hope you will join us for that. Yes, Titan, that will be simulcast. I think I'm starting to think that one's going to be big enough. Maybe we don't want to have to deal with the a restream bot. I don't know. I want to murder the bot, and my only regret is that it's not alive. So even if I deleted it, it wouldn't be murder. That's one that would be worth going to jail for. But at any rate. So that is on Saturday, starting at 1 p.m. Eastern. It's going to be between 4 and 6 hours, and we are, as I said, it's going to be a call-in show. So call in, talk to me, talk to anyone else. Maybe we can get Lance to come in for a little bit, as Isandring's going to be there. So it's going to be an awesome show. Then Anastasia is going to be back on the 25th. She's going to be talking to us about what it's like to grow up in a war zone. She's one of my she was on oh dear Lord, I've forgotten the name of the channel. I'll look it up because he deserves credit. But she was on with a content creator a while back giving an interview, and all of a sudden the lights flickered and you could hear the rockets and everything exploding in the background. I was like, don't you think you should get a little further away from the window? I mean, we don't have to do this interview right now. She's like, oh no, everything's great. She's got a glass of wine. So it's different. And so we're gonna talk to her. I think that's gonna be great. Then we're gonna have Anna from Ukraine on May 2nd. She is a vlogger who has been cataloging her personal journey as she has watched Ukraine go from her beloved home city or home country to utter ruin. She is actually just south of Belarus, and we're going to talk to her also about any concerns they have about Belarus entering the war and what it was like in the first days when the entire Russian military was coming down through Belarus. Brandon Mitchell, a combat medic for 10 months. He's been a combat medic for more than 10 months, but a combat medic who served on the front lines for 10 months and who also He's Canadian. He volunteered and served in Belarus as well as Bakhmut. One of these days I'll get these correct. Served in Bakhmut. And we're going to be talking to him about what it's like being a combat medic in front lines of a war zone. That is going to be on May 9th. Then we've got the next week, and we haven't settled on the date yet. We're still talking to him, Ben Hodges. He is a retired United States Army officer. He is a brigadier general who also served as the commander for NATO ground forces in Europe and advisor to the Supreme Allied Commander of NATO. He also still serves as the NATO Senior Mentor for Logistics and is a senior advisor to Human Rights First, where he has been advising them since June of last year, and is the Pershing. I don't know how to pronounce that word. Chair in Strategic Studies. So that's going to be a very good show. We're looking forward to that one, and I think we're going to. We've already given him a list of the questions, and we're going to ask him some pretty tough questions about the position NATO is in, what could or would happen in his estimation. We're also going to have, hopefully Lance is going to be able to make it there, and I don't want to put him in a hard spot, but quite frankly, in every email I've had with him, he's already been rather intimidating, so I don't think I could put him in a hard spot. But we're going to ask him some of the tough questions we can about where we are and where this is headed and what he thinks the exit strategy is. So that will be on sometime in the week of the 17th, and then after that we're going to have Lance is going to have to teach me how to pronounce this name. Pat Lohmeister, Leominster, I don't know, some cop guy, who's going to be on to discuss with us what people get wrong most frequently about the police. Hopefully he's not watching right now, or else he's going to give me a call. That phone's going to ring any second. He's going to be like, Nick, you know how to pronounce my name, goddammit. Anyways, thank you all for joining us. That is coming up. Like, subscribe, share. I'm hoping that by the end of this week we can get overtime up to 1,000 subs. We are 100 subs short, and once we've done that, we get rid of the restream bot in 99% of the cases, and it makes everybody's lives easier. But enough of the shilling. Welcome. Thank you for joining us, Commander Lance McMillan. Lance, how are you?
I'm doing pretty good. Mostly recovered from my exciting sojourn in COVID land.
I was mildly worried just because as people get older, of course, those statistics start to head south, and I don't want to make fun of how old you are because I'm catching up, but as we were discussing,
Errol Ramses and I were tennis buddies.
Oh, my daughters have been, and it's funny because I remember doing it to my dad, but my daughters really, they just harp on me about so Daddy, what was it like when they invented the black and white television? You were already so old. Were you able to adapt to that? I mean, you were used to the radio with is it radio with pictures? What was that? Oh, you son of a, didn't you have to crank start your first car, Daddy? No, that was my dad. Of course, I said something along the same lines to my dad. I told him he had to crank start his first Chariot, but at any rate, okay. So two quick things. So yeah, we've got on this Pat guy. He's a cop, I guess. Was a cop. Pat Lohmeister. I don't know how to pronounce his last name, but
Lohinger.
There you go. I know how to pronounce.
I know you know.
And we've had him on before.
Love rubbing your nose in it.
We had him on. Honestly,
no
yeah. Okay, I know. I got to give him a break. Well, first of all, two things about that. First of all, we had him on to discuss the U.S. withdrawal in Afghanistan. And the reality is, as smart as Pat is, and as much as he knows about, obviously, police work in any number of things, here's a guy who has basically reinvented himself and knows so much about history. It's insane. And it's, as you know, I'm pretty well versed in history, but he kicked my ass. It was and quite easily.
Especially ancient history. Wow.
Yeah. Well, it probably helps to have lived it. But at any rate, I'm sorry. Well, it's not. Is this the one that can get clipped? Because I know Titan knows how to reach him. But at any rate, and the other thing was, of course, it was when Trump was indicted. I was just like AFK for like 5 minutes, and all of a sudden my phone goes off, and it's like 3 different people calling me. I was like, this can't be a good sign. But I pick up Pat first. I'm like, hey, Pat. He goes, so when are you going live? I was like, with what? He goes, Trump's been indicted. I was like, bye. I gotta go.
Bye.
I hang up on him a lot. He's good. He like half the time he's the first one to notify me of breaking news. He just calls me up, which is awfully nice of him. So hopefully I don't know if he's gonna be at the Better conference. He wasn't there last year, but I'd like to see him. Anyways, so that's it. As I think, and I just talked to him like a couple days ago. So I'd like to. Oh God, and now Isandring's in the. Oh dear Lord! I don't think he's got perms on this channel, so it may be that I was going to say maybe the Titan can mod him, but I doubt I could get Titan to do that. So yeah, we are booked for almost 6 weeks, and I think some great shows. So
cool.
Yeah, I'm hoping we can get you for the combat medic. I think that's going to be one more. Yeah. So and definitely for General Ben Hodges, because it's like I'm not, and he is. There's something about the way even in email, he's fucking intimidating. All right. Anyways, so you're doing better. There's a lot we missed. So Titan had a question, and I wanted to get to that, but then there was also what was it? The one we were talking about? Okay, so there was the settlement, which really bugged the shit out of me. Okay, how do you feel about the settlement, the Dominion settlement?
That, boy, it's not an insubstantial hunk of cash. So it definitely will hurt Fox. Regardless, I would have loved to have seen them dragged to the mud and all the press that would have come out from the trial, and then get schwacked for the full amount. But I suspect Dominion figured it would be better to just cut its, expenses and go with, a sure thing, and rather than a maybe we'll get lucky. To me, the key thing is less the settlement than what, and we don't know how this is going to play out, but what will happen as a result of said settlement. Will Fox actually enact reforms within their news, very large air quotes here, news department, so that they, get the talking head pundit slant imbecilic moron crowd to not go off on these wingnut, expositions that can get them in trouble. I mean, shareholders have got to be pissed at Fox when you lose that amount of money. That's big. So I can't imagine that there isn't going to be something coming out of it. But, let's face it, Murdoch and the rest of the crowd, who are the major shareholders there, are, Nazis in all but name. So I don't think they are really going to give a flaming fuck about a little bit of expense as long as they can continue spewing their lies.
Well,
I'm hoping, but I'm a realist.
First of all, I think any improvement, let's assume for a second they really wanted to improve, which is one hell of an assumption, and I think is patently absurd, but let's assume for a second they wanted to. The first problem you've got is that because this is their mindset, it's been my experience that, what people tend to repeatedly just split the difference and can't actually cross over the finish line. So, if you take a look at, accurate news and reporting on a scale of 1 to 10, and Fox is a 1 or a 2. and they say, you know what, we're going to improve. We're going to make some serious changes here, and we're going to do, and they get up to a 3 or a 4. To them, that's a huge improvement. And they say, we're now a legit news organ. We're great. And it's like, no, you haven't even, crossed the bar into credible at, 7 or 8 yet. It's just that it seems like it's a huge improvement for you because proportionately speaking, and now you're working so much harder, but realistically, they see the end goal as being acceptable as instead of just doing the best they possibly can each and every day. And then you naturally cross over into acceptable and hopefully exceptional. They're not they don't have the skills or ability to do it, even if they wanted to. They can improve, and they'll think they've made huge swaths of progress when really it's very small incremental shit, and it's always, splitting the difference. That amount of money as a percentage of what they make every week, I forget what it is, but unfortunately, it's not a sneezing, it's nothing to sneeze at, but on the flip side, it's not going to hurt the bottom line tremendously. But so at first I was disappointed because I was like, why didn't Dominion do the American thing and just let it go so that we could? Well, because they're a company and because they're beholden to their stockholders and they're not interested in saving the country. They're interested in making voting machines. That's what they do. And as a business, they got that solved and taken care of. So they, and so I do get that. I'm disappointed. But Smartmatic is still going after them. There are a number of individuals still going after them. I forget the list of suits that they have. And what they've already seeded in this suit and what the judge has already attested to and decided, which was in fact that they lied. The whether or not they lied portion has already been decided. The judge just went in and said, yeah, they lied. So the only question is, was it done with malice? Every lawyer I've spoken with that's looked at it said, yes, absolutely, that they've got that rock solid. So that's gonna be the starting spot going forward. Is they lied about the election, they lied about X, Y, and Z, and I think it makes it a lot easier for other ones going forward. So for me, I am cautiously optimistic that we're gonna see more suits and from people interested in going all the way. I do understand why Dominion didn't want to. I'm disappointed. I think they should have, but I'm not a shareholder, so I do get it. Sucks. So, let's see. And I wanted to,
There's also, and I'm not positive on this, but I've heard from folks that I think are credible, but Dominion is hardly what one would call a scion of, liberal progressive thinking and such. They're fairly conservative in their views, and it would not surprise me that there was some of that at play here as well, which is don't push too hard on the conservative big talking head because he serves our interests to begin with.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I hope I was disappointed for the settlement. I hope we see more in the coming cases, because I think this has to come to light, and if it doesn't, there's no incentive to change anything. In fact, I'm not even, like I said earlier, I think you have to dismantle the organization. I don't think, but
that's true of a lot of what's wrong, not just with that, but other aspects of our current problems in this country.
Well, and here's the other thing.
It really does necessitate a dismantling before we can start improvement.
I wasn't sure. I honestly thought if they went all the way with this that they could get punitive damages. I don't know if that was on the table or not, but if it was, I thought it would. They could probably exceed. The punitive damages that they could get for this would be just staggering. But we'll never know. So the other one, let's see. There's a couple of other interesting ones, but Pomerantz, which I finally sort of have that correct. Michael, or is it Michael or Mark Pomerantz, who former member of the Manhattan DA's office, has been called to testify. I think he's doing it on Monday or Tuesday, about the building of the case against Trump. And this is by every understanding, and we've got Isandring in the live chat. He knows the Constitution better than I, so I'd be curious. We've talked about it some, so I think I'm on solid ground when I say this is unheard of. That we've basically got Congress investigating a state's investigation of, and without anybody having gone to Congress. To the best of my knowledge, nobody complained to Congress and said, there's something wrong here. If there was, it should have gone to the judiciary. So I thought they had two very good arguments for blocking the subpoena, but it looks like both have been thrown out by the judge. The judge was appointed by Trump. But Bregwin had said this, I like this, and this was essentially the argument, to the best of my understanding, that that he will be forced to testify because the judge does not want to overstep the separation of powers to curtail the judiciary overstepping the separation of powers. So I don't know. Any thoughts on that?
I'm not much I can say about it because this is the first I've heard of it. So,
all right. Well, so it's what you've got. No worries. So Trump was, of course, indicted, and
I understand exactly
okay.
what you're talking about when you said this. It's just this is the first I've heard that there was such a attempt to basically call the whole investigative process into question, and that's really what this is all about. This is, yet again, the proto-fascist Republicans trying to say, oh no, this is a liberal plot, there's no truth to it, we won the election fair and square, etc. It's like, at some point, one just hopes the population is going to say, we're done with them, haul them out into the street, douse them with gasoline, and set the whole fucking lot of them on fire.
Metaphorically, let's be crystal clear. Just we're on YouTube. We don't know. We're gonna. What I find interesting is that it's the same party where we've got basically now they're saying, well, according to the Constitution, the legislative branch the executive branch of a state has the final say in how. Who draws? No, I think it's the legislative. It's legislative draws the districts for a state, but they can draw them any way they want, and there is no recourse to the federal level. If there's no recourse to the federal level, there's no recourse within the state either. So you're done. However they do it, and if they just say, okay, we're going to have all these districts that are going to be Republican, and this one will be Democrat because we've gerrymandered the living daylights out of it, they can do that. That's because you
can sue, and suit has been brought in a number of cases against states where there are obvious gerrymandering going on based on racial lines. You can't sue if it's based on party affiliation or something. But if you can show that it's a violation of whatever the federal statute regarding elections and such, and if you can do that, then you're probably safe. But
I think you can make the suit. I think you're going to lose, and I think the reason you're going to lose is, first of all, we're looking at a Supreme Court that's willing to overturn most of the guarantees that from any kind of, and that includes civil unions, but that also everything short of loving, I noticed, but right to gay marriage. But that notwithstanding, I think because of the way it's written, if you have the strictest interpretation of the Constitution, then they don't have to recognize your rights if they don't want to. In this case, well, no, let me rephrase that, because they would, but the problem is the right to vote, to the best of my knowledge, again, Isandring may be able to correct me on this, but I don't believe the right to vote is actually enshrined in the Constitution. So I think what happens is, if a state denies individuals their rights, you only have recourse at the state level. And if the Supreme Court now says you don't have recourse above the legislature, because it's the legislature that gets to draw the map, and according to the Constitution, they're the, again, strictest interpretation, they're the only ones who can do it, then there's no recourse. If voting were an actual guaranteed right at the federal level, I think a case like that may win, but I don't think it is. It's been a while. I'm going to have to get into that, dear Lord.
There have been multiple lawsuits brought against states for doing this kind of stuff, and most of them actually have won.
I think they did, but that's up until, I'm only talking about how the Supreme Court's going to handle it. And they've telegraphed that in a way that is the strictest interpretation of, if the Supreme Court decides, there's one before the Supreme Court right now, I'll have to, I'm still in brain drain from my vacation,
well,
so I'll have to.
We know where this Supreme Court is heading. I mean, we're going to turn into a Christo-fascist nation if they have any ability to bring it about. And as I've mentioned previously, I think the end result is foreordained because of that.
Speaking of, the Senate Judiciary Committee has sent a letter to John Roberts, who's the Chief Justice of the U.S. Supreme Court, and it reads as follows. And I'm going to read, it's a reasonably short letter, but I'm going to read it in its entirety because it starts out very nice and pleasant and turns ugly quick. Dear Chief Justice Roberts, I invite you or another justice whom you designate to appear before the Senate Judiciary Committee on May 2nd, 2023 at 10 a.m. in room 216 of the Hart Senate Office Building to testify at a public hearing regarding the ethical rules that govern the justices of the Supreme Court and potential reforms to those rules. In extending this invitation, I offer that the scope of your testimony can be limited to these subjects and that you would not be expected to answer questions from senators regarding any other matters. Your last significant discussion of how the Supreme Court justices addressed ethical issues was presented in your 2011 year-end report on the federal judiciary. Since then, there has been a steady stream of revelations regarding justices falling short of the ethical standards expected of other federal judges and indeed of public servants generally. These problems were already apparent back in 2011, and the court's decade-long failure to address them has contributed to a crisis of public confidence. The status quo is no longer tenable. There is ample precedent for a sitting justice of the Supreme Court to testify before Congress, including regarding ethics. The Senate Judiciary Committee most recently heard testimony from sitting justices on October 5th, 2011, and that hearing included robust exchanges about the court's approach to ethics matters. The opportunity for the American people to hear from justices in this setting presents a moment that could strengthen faith in our public institutions. The time has come for a new public conversation on the way to restore confidence in the court's ethical standards. I invite you to join it, and I look forward to your response. I'd like to also remind people that Chief Justice Roberts basically said that you needn't actually have ethical standards for the Supreme Court by nature of the fact that they are on the Supreme Court. They are above. Yeah, that's the right. I can see you rolling your eyes. Those, by nature of the fact that they are on the Supreme Court, they are already above reproach and have the highest ethical standards. So you don't need to have any laws of ethics that govern them. And even if you did, they did not apply because the only body that would be capable of enforcing those laws or those regulations would in fact be the highest judiciary in the land, which would be the Supreme Court of the United States. That is obviously a bullshit argument for any number of reasons and is what you get when you start to get a totalitarian body. I mean, they're just sitting there saying like, oh, yeah, you can't, it's absolutely insane. And Roberts, who I've usually thought of, I mean, he's on the right, but at least he's sort of vanilla right almost, that he could make that argument is staggering. So anyways, that letter went out.
He started right center, has been paddling furiously to head as far to the right as he can ever since.
Yep. Now, this is the same judiciary that also is attempting to make the Manhattan DA's office very make their life very difficult. But I do agree. I mean, the latest revelations about Thomas, oh my God, and they just keep getting worse. And he refused to recuse himself on a case in which his wife could have received serious damage, depending on how it. She was certainly implicated in criminal activities, and he's like, I'm not going to recuse myself. I mean, holy shit. So, I don't know. I think anything's going to come of it?
No.
No.
Remember, this is a group that firmly believes that, rich right men are not answerable to anybody except themselves. And, I know Thomas doesn't fully qualify in that, but he's part of the same circle of logic that applies to that. It's one of the things that has always troubled me about the American system, which is that there are effectively two tiers of justice. It's everybody else and those people who have the financial wherewithal to basically insulate themselves from any wrongdoing whatsoever.
If you could wave a magic wand and make one change to the system of government at any level, any degree of structural change, one change about the system that would, in your view, give it the best shot of improvement or success going forward, what would that be?
Well, that's a tough one. I would probably argue for universally applied term limits to all federal and state offices of all sorts across the board. I don't think anybody should stay in an office beyond arguably 12 years at the maximum. I think that as long as you don't have that and you allow these perpetual systems to establish where somebody just keeps rolling again and again and again, and then often turns it over to a family member to go again and again and again. We haven't progressed out of the Middle Ages. We're still living in a feudal autocracy. It's, it's not right. And I think it should be, that's the fundamental start of how you eliminate some of that problem. Now, that said, there are, as you and I have talked about, issues that develop when you don't have the ability for more experienced legislators who understand how the system works, and then because of that end up having to rely on appointees as their staffers who run everything at that point, and they become kind of a shadow cabinet, if you will, that really is what ends up running the affair. But again, that can also be dealt with a similar concept, which is that no staffer may be assigned to a staff beyond a certain number of years, et cetera, et cetera.
Where on the list of fixes would you put A, getting money out of, so finding a way, however it would be done? And this is we're waving a magic wand here, so the practical aspects of how you do it getting.
I will preface what goes forth from that statement by saying I don't think you can get money out of politics. I think it is inherent to the very nature of a capitalist system that money drives everything. And we can pass all sorts of excitable little laws and pretend, but it's still going to be there. There are so many ways around regulations and laws and ethic clauses and everything else that you could put in place that money would still flow and influence would be peddled. I think it's unrealistic to say that we're going to get money out of politics. You're never going to get money out of politics as long as there's money, period.
What about a third party? Do you think a third party is viable and or desirable or would help at all, or
as in a third political party?
Yeah, a third political party, nationally recognized political party.
I would love to see it. I don't think it's really three-party system. I think the key is that you need a something resembling a parliamentary system where you have multiple parties. Because with three parties, it's always 2 against 1, and you know it's always going to fall to one side. You know, and it kind of there's no compromise situation, and that's why I like the idea of a realistic parliamentary multi-party system, because it allows even small groups to have at least some potential to influence the course of the political discourse. It has negative aspects. I will point that out as well. Israel being a perfect case in point, where basically the smallest of parties really is the one that controls everything that goes on, because in order to remain in power, they have to keep catering to them and giving them what they want, or they'll back out of the coalition, and it falls, and you end up with chaos. So there are issues there as well. But I think regardless, that at least offers some way out of the us versus them dilemma we find ourselves in this country today.
No, I think that's, I think that was, my understanding was that they were just trying to get as far away from the British system as possible, and so they decided that they weren't going to have a parliamentary system, and I think that was a mistake.
Yeah. Honestly, I think a lot of why they ended up where they were was because the aristocracy, the Jeffersons, the Adams, the Washington, etc., the people who were the influence brokers in the country, or the fledgling country at the time, wanted to ensure there was a system that allowed them to remain in the positions they were, to be the powerful ones. They didn't want to see a situation where you actually had something that was approaching a true democracy, where the masses would say, well, wait a minute, I'm living in a log cabin, and this asshole has got, you know, a mansion and dozens of outbuildings that are bigger than what I'm living in, and he owns 10,000 slaves or whatever it is. You know, this isn't fair. We're going to break that up and make it more equitable. And we can't have that, man. That we didn't fight this revolution, or we didn't organize and lead this revolution so that you could live in comfort. I mean, honestly, I remain convinced that the dumbest damn thing the British did was not turn around and just go back to the colonies and say, yeah, every colony's going to get 1 or 2 seats, you know, in commons, and certain very high officials will end up with, you know, you're the the Duke of Virginia and you're the Viscount of Massachusetts, everything would have been fine. I'm serious, because the people that orchestrated and organized all the opposition and financed the revolution and fought the revolution were the ones who were doing it because they wanted to just be the same big britches as the assholes back in London who were running things were. That's really what it was.
Well, and money. They, as you had said earlier, they were sick and tired of not having financial control over what was going on in the U.S. And frankly, if Britain had been more equitable about that,
they had full control. They weren't paying any taxes at all, and the Crown had basically bankrupted itself fighting this stupid war to preserve the colonies in the New World. And they said, we'd like you to help pay down the debt that we incurred saving your asses from the French. Hell no. Where did republicanism start? There it is.
Oh, dear Lord. Well,
I want all the services, but I don't want to have to pay 1 penny in taxes for it.
So, I want to change gears, but before I do that, was there anything else going on big in the news that you thought we should? Oh, there was one. So, and I got this one. Titan had asked this question, and I honestly hadn't heard about it. So, which makes me mildly suspicious, I have to say. So he said, he wanted to get your views on, quote, Russian spy boats mapping European wind farms.
It's like, yeah, so what? That the Russians, back as far as the 60s, and that at least is from when I know about it. I'm sure it was prior to that. We called them trawlers because many of them were actually converted Russian fishing trawlers. They had tons of these things floating all over the oceans, and that's the only thing they did was gather intelligence. They followed our battle groups around. They lingered off our ports and monitored our communications. You know, what they're doing today by mapping out wind farms and, you know, deciding where all the undersea pipelines and such run, that's what you do. It's nothing unusual. And since it's being done in the international waters, there's not a damn thing that can be done about it.
Well, it's a bit the same with the Chinese balloons, right? I mean, it's like, yeah, they've been around for a while. The question isn't, are they doing this, but how and when did we first spot it?
Different because they're going over airspace.
Mm.
And airspace is, you have to check in when you cross into somebody's airspace. The international law of the sea, at the 12-mile limit, the other guy can come in and say, howdy doody. Now, there is out to 200 miles, which is called an economic exclusion zone. So the Russians can't come in and fish inside 200 miles of our shorelines unless they get the right permits from us. But if these vessels that are coming in are outside that 12-mile limit, they can come inside that 200-mile limit because they're not fishing, they're not mining the floor bottom, what have you. So it's perfectly, and I wouldn't laugh. That's one of the things they do, is they do mine floor bottom mining.
Please finish. Sorry.
And so that's what they're doing, is they're exercising their right of innocent passage, or whatever you want to call it, to come in and basically spy on us, and we do the same. Let's be honest.
I was laughing because Sinister Porpoise put in a phrase that I just thought was hilarious, was aircraft carriers, the Navy's way of playing the international "I'm not touching you" game. Like,
yes.
I just read that. I just could.
Oh no, but it's true. It's like, yeah, okay, here's the 12-mile limit. We're steaming at 13 miles out. You can't say that we're intimidating you. This is international waters. Yeah, admittedly, our aircraft could easily range over your entire pathetic little country and turn every building you think is important into rubble. But no, we're just out here, exercising our right of innocent passage and doing military training. Sure you are.
Speaking of, actually, now that we're on that, and so Taiwan, they completely encircled Taiwan. That was, I think it's one of the bigger exercises they've ever done. But we had talked about that and the idea that, well, no, they're just this was expected. They're having their own internal issues and they're trying to detract. Is there anything to be worried about or anything to be? I mean, this is. I think there's
always the possibility. I mean, it's like, are the Russians going to attack Ukraine? And everybody who had half a brain was looking at it, going, what possible reason would they attack Ukraine? It doesn't get them anything, and it ends up doing all sorts of horrible things by doing it, but it happened. So yeah, the possibility does exist. The Chinese could decide that today is the day we start the big swim. Incidentally, that's jokingly what we called it.
Oh, the theoretical the plan.
It's a play on, because there was the China or Mao's famous Long March.
Oh yeah, that's right.
During Chinese Civil War, Long March. So this became by extension the Big Swim, because I mean, you looked at it, it was like, and admittedly, I'm talking about back in even up until like the 80s. The Chinese Navy had absolutely no sea lift capability. And so any invasion of Taiwan was basically going to be done by commandeering car ferries and fishing boats and every tramp steamer and tugboat with a barge all the way up and down the entire Chinese coast. And, they'd come waddling across the straits to try to invade. And it was like, okay, yeah, whatever. Now, they have corrected that to some extent. They do have a lift capability, but when you look at the size of Taiwan's defensive forces against what the likely assault wave the Chinese could throw ashore would be, and it's kind of like, this is really sketchy.
Well, and I think you had said this earlier too. Basically, the one thing they could do is bomb it, and they could do that maybe reasonably effectively, but that has the problem of that's indiscriminate. You end up basically wiping out the entire island, and aside from the international outcry over that kind of bombardment that would be necessary to win, what are you going to have by the time you're done? It's all going to be laid to rubble, and you've just completely wiped the island off the face of the map.
You've destroyed everything you could possibly gain from taking the place. It's not like you need to conquer and enslave all the people, because you've already got a huge excess labor pool in your own country. It's, what is the purpose to attacking Taiwan? Particularly when leaving it be does so many good things for them. And I'm even discounting the political safety valve aspect that I think is the biggest advantage that Taiwan affords China. But it's like I think Taiwan is China's number 3 trading partner, or number 4 trading partner. Taiwanese businessmen are the ones who own and have the brain power that operate many of the factories that are in mainland China that are the cause of all their economic success and everything. And so you eliminate that and the factory shut down because there's nobody there to run it anymore. It's just like, there's no logic to doing this. Not saying it can't happen, but
well,
how desperate does C have to be?
Yeah. I mean, I think the only thing that would make it reasonably likely would be if other provinces were talking about secession, but the reason they haven't is because Taiwan has not, at least on paper, succeeded, and they have a huge advantage. So it's like if they can't do it, you know, so none of the others have made a serious attempt. If they started to, then they might want to make an example of Taiwan. But yeah, I think that's Maya Atkinson. I hate everyone. I've been there. I know the feeling. All right. Well, I guess one of my favorite discussions that we had was, and it's great when we can do, you know, the political stuff, and I appreciate your insight into that. But you know, we can do that on any number of shows. So you and I did a foray into our favorite books, and I had said that we would need to do our favorite movies because we were talking about them, and you had mentioned. I don't know if this was in your favorites, but it was one that you had said I should see, Tora. But yes. I think that inspired. We need to get into that discussion, and I was thinking of doing that tonight. But you indulged me in making up for all the news that we missed on In Time because I was just unavailable. So thank you. But maybe next time we'll, if things haven't exploded, you know, we'll get into that and a few other questions I had. But I think I'm still jet lagged, so I'm gonna I think call it a night. And we do want to remind everyone. Tomorrow, Operator Starsky, Lance and Operator Starsky will be on. We'll be talking about the latest in Ukraine. And then the day after that, on Saturday, 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, we will be having our Ukrainian fundraiser. All super chats are going to go to the UN Refugee Relief Fund. We're donating to the Ukrainian fund, so it's all going to go to Ukraine. And we're going to have on Anastasia, Anna from Ukraine, Starsky, the Shills, Godless Granny, a number of others. I'm hoping, Lance, you can stop by. I know Isandring's going to be there, so we're going to have a lot of people, and it's going to be a call-in show. So if you have been dying to ask anyone a question, you know, does that suit really cost $400? Now's your chance. You can give us a call and ask your questions, or just hang out in the live chat, ask from the live chat, and you know, we should have. I'm looking forward to it. I think it's going to be a good show. We're going to have a lot of really good people on, and I think it is a worthwhile cause. So, and then we've got 5 weeks booked out after that of guests. So I think it's going to be really good shows for the next couple of weeks. I hope you will like, subscribe, share, and ring that bell so that you get these notifications and don't miss the Ukrainian fundraiser. So I hope you all can do that. Also, come to our Discord, and you can learn more about that fundraiser coming up and our other shows coming up, and discuss politics, gaming, anything in the news. We have it all on our Discord. Gaming. The gaming channel. Well, the only biggie about the gaming channel, we used to have some people who discuss gaming a lot. I'm a gamer, but I usually end up getting stuck into the more news stuff. But we do have Epic Games gives away a free game. Sometimes they're exactly what you'd expect. They're like the $20 games they're giving away for free, and every now and then they'll hit you up with like a $60 or $70 game, like a mainstream, like what is it? A AAA game that, you know, free for a week. And so we have all those on our gaming section. But
this is online gaming, not board gaming. Okay.
Oh yeah, no, it's not board gaming, but
not real gaming. Okay.
Yeah, no. Okay, yeah. Well, it's not gaming in the sense of, you know, I have a buddy of mine. So first of all, I have a buddy of mine who plays poker professionally. And I know a few people who play poker professionally, actually, but a buddy of mine who plays it professionally, and I don't play poker with him. But I also learned a lot of really good card tricks, and after I've shown those tricks to people, nobody wants to play poker with me. So I don't play much. Titan wants to know if you play poker.
I lose at poker. The only time I ever played poker was when I was in Bahrain at the liaison officer, 5th Fleet, and the guys in my work cell would once a week get together and play poker, and they invited me, and so I went, and I decided beforehand I was going to limit myself to $20, period. And I very quickly lost the $20, and then the guy said, "Okay, you just play with my money, just so we have you here at the table." I'm terrible at poker.
Yes. Here's what we need to do. We need to do an in-time poker night. We'll have you, Isandring, myself, Maute, and just so that we have someone to someone to be the sucker, we'll have Titan on there. We'll teach him how to play, and that'll be fun. We need to do that. I think that's a great idea. I love it. All right. Well, thank you very much for joining us, Lance. Look forward to seeing you tomorrow with Operator Starsky, and then again on Saturday for our...
We're still on the delayed start?
Yes, so it will be 3 p.m. Eastern tomorrow with Starsky, and then we're going to do 1 p.m. Eastern on Saturday for the Ukraine stream. And I hope you guys will... The link to that is... the link to the fundraiser is in the description. And I hope you guys will share that around if you know anyone who might be interested. And again, you can just come on down. If anyone who's a fan of Starsky's or Anastasia or Anna from Ukraine, any of these channels, you can come on down and talk to them and ask them questions. So I think if you know a fan who'd be interested, make sure you hook them up with the link, and we look forward to seeing you then. In the meantime, Lance, look forward to seeing you tomorrow, and have a good night all. We appreciate you joining us.
Take care.